citing the need to manage risk and respond to client demand. Still need proof? The influence of ESG ratings on firms' cost of capital will only increase in the next 5 years. And let's face it, only 5% of investment professionals say there is nothing that would convince them to start considering ESG issues. Are you prepared for the rise of ESG?
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Women in Finance Roundtable webinar. We are glad that you have decided to join us today to celebrate International Women's Day. My name is Rochelle Sampang Manaog, Program Director of CFA Society Philippines, and I am your host for today's event. To formally welcome us all, may we please have the President and Chairman of CFA Society Philippines, Dr. Robert Ramos, CFA CIPM Kaya.
Thank you, Rochelle. In the Philippines, Women's Month has since served as a venue to highlight women's achievements, to discuss continuing and emerging women's empowerment concerns, challenges, and commitments. As a product of a family with strong women, my mother, my aunts, I am very excited to welcome all of you to an event with smart, powerful, and very engaging women. I look forward to hearing what all of them have to say. Again, happy Women's Month, and thank you all for coming. Rochelle, back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Robert Ramos, for the warm welcome. Again, welcome to the Women in Finance Roundtable, brought to you by CFA Society Philippines. This is in celebration of Women's Month. We will talk about the importance of women participation in the investment industry. Now, it is a privilege to introduce to all of you the moderator for today's session. Our moderator is a finance professional with more than 10 years of experience in the banking industry, specializing in risk, liquidity, and capital management. She was a risk officer focused on credit and interest rate risk management in East West Bank, and an asset liability management and market risk analyst in Security Bank before she joined her current firm as a banking book trader. She graduated with a bachelor's and further a master's in applied mathematics, major in mathematical finance from Ateneo de Manila University. She's a CFA charter holder, a certified financial risk manager, and a certified treasury professional. Without further ado, may we call on Ms. Gladys Guela, CFA FRM.
Hi, Mr. Chell. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to this Women in Finance Roundtable. I am proud to introduce our panelists for this afternoon session. Our first panelist is Ms. Marie-Tony Bautista, who established her footing in the banking industry for 14 years, wherein she held various posts such as derivatives and structured products chief dealer in BDO Private Bank, head of corporate sales in Security Bank Treasury, and vice president handling financial market sales in ING Bank Manila branch. Currently, she is director, head of financial institution sales in Standard Chartered Bank Philippines. Further to this, she has always been an advocate for continuing learning. She has been a resident resource speaker for Ateneo CCE, handling topics such as financial risk management, fundamentals of derivatives, and business of treasury banking series. She is also a resident review instructor in the CFA Level 1 review class, handling the fixed income and derivatives modules. She graduated with a master's in applied mathematics, major in mathematical finance from the Ateneo de Manila University last 2008. She is a chartered financial analyst, a certified treasury professional, and an SEC certified fixed income and equity salesman. Please welcome Ms. Marie-Tony Bautista, CFA.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Gladys, for that kind introduction.
Welcome, Ms. Tony. Our second panelist is Ms. Mary Jane Chong, CFA. Ms. Mary Jane Chong is Assistant Governor and Chief Audit Executive of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. As Head of Internal Audit, she leads in providing independent, objective, and reasonable assurance and advice to the Monetary Board and BSP senior management to ensure that governance, risk management, and control processes are effective in enabling BSP achieve its core mandates. Ms. Chong has devoted more than 24 years of her career in civil service, firmly committed to providing public service through her work at the BSP. Her professional career at the BSP has provided her opportunities to work in various areas. With more than 17 years in banking supervision, her work contributed in providing appropriate financial policies, rules and regulations, as well as on-site and off-site supervision of BSP-supervised financial institutions. Her advocacy, in particular, included promoting the liberalization, development, and growth of FX and capital markets, which spurred her involvement in related industry associations and specialized working committees. She served as a member of the CFA Board of Trustees in 2011 to 2012, and more recently, from 2019 to 2021. As Ms. Chong rose through the ranks at the BSP, her involvement expanded into other areas of central banking, including financial consumer protection, monetary policy and operations, financial market operations, reserve management, international investor relations, digitalization of payments, strategic communications, and internal audit. As a BSP scholar, Ms. Chong completed her MSc in Capital Markets, Regulation and Compliance, graduating with distinction and granted the Academic Achievement Award by the University of Reading, United Kingdom, for topping the MSc class of 2010. In 2005, Ms. Chong was awarded the right to use the CFA designation. Prior to completing the program, Ms. Chong finished her MBA major in finance at the De La Salle University with high distinction in 2001. In 1997, she ranked 5th in the Philippine CPA board exam after graduating cum laude salutatorian at the Ateneo de Zamboanga University. Ms. Chong advocates for diversity and gender equality. In this regard, she believes that knowledge is a powerful tool in providing voice and courage and can be that great equalizer that is key to breaking barriers of gender inequality. As an advocate for knowledge, Ms. Chong is also passionate about teaching, previously handling undergraduate and graduate classes at the De La Salle University Professional Schools, De La Salle University, and San Beda College. At the BSP, Ms. Chong has consistently worked in developing capacity building programs, also serving as resource speaker in numerous internal and external, including international, workshops, seminars, and trainings. Please welcome Ms. Mary Jane Chong, CFA.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, CFA Philippines, for inviting me. I think the long introduction just demonstrates how long I have been in the industry, more than 24 years. Thank you very much, Gladys, for the kind introduction.
Welcome, Ms. Jane. Our last panelist for this afternoon session is Ms. Mary Jade Rojas Divina Gracia, CFA, CBA. Ms. Mary Jade Rojas Divina Gracia is the Managing Partner of Deals and Corporate Finance at PwC Philippines. She has over 25 years of combined experience in M&A advisory, financial audit and due diligence, valuation and value creation, and infrastructure advisory. She works with private equity firms and strategic investors in numerous cross-border deals, from target search, due diligence, valuation, up to transaction close. She also assists local business owners, including startups, in raising equity funding from both financial and strategic investors. She and her team concluded M&A transactions amid the challenges of the pandemic. She is a certified public accountant, a CFA charter holder, as well as a chartered valuer and appraiser by the Institute of Valuers and Appraisers of Singapore. She is a graduate member of the Institute of Corporate Directors. She also completed the Advanced Management Program of the Harvard Business School. Please give a warm welcome to Ms. Mary Jade Rojas Divina Gracia, CFA, CBA.
Thank you so much, Gladys. Good afternoon, everyone, and happy International Women's Day. I'm honored to be here and join these wonderful women in the panel.
Welcome, Ms. Jade. So we have met our 3 panelists for this afternoon. And to start things off, I think the very most simple question would be, how did you become interested to work in the financial industry? So I think we can start with Ms. Tony.
Okay. Hi, Glad. I think in my own experience, I was very fortunate that when I was still studying in Ateneo, we had what we call a practitioner seminar, wherein one of our mentors was actually Roy Laksamana. So for everyone who is in treasury and in financial markets, of course, Sir Roy is a legend. All of us took the treasury certification program. So essentially, he was the main person who influenced me and my liking on financial markets. So that was the reason why when I graduated, I was really dead on spot, wanting a job in treasury and in financial markets. But unfortunately, of course, there are things that are out of our control. When I graduated, it was the global financial crisis. So unfortunate for our batch, we had trouble gaining jobs which was related to financial markets. So most of us either took on management training opportunities, but I was also fortunate to be hired in trust. So I think that was, in a way, closest to financial markets, given that I was still dealing fixed income. I was still talking to sales, for example. I was still dealing structured products and so forth. So that was my step one. And then eventually, when the market improved and recovered following the global financial crisis, I was able to transfer to financial market. And as we say, the rest was history. Up until now, I'm still in financial markets.
How about you, Miss Jane? Was it also a teacher, and did you also was it also difficult when you started with the industry?
For me, actually, I was influenced by my siblings to take up BS in accountancy. So this related to finance. No, we are 8 in the family. So there are 4 accounting graduates, 3 CPAs. So that actually really strongly influenced my decision in terms of my undergraduate scores. And then fortunately, I thrived well in college, and then took the board exam and worked for an audit firm at first, for 6 months. That's a natural career progression for CPAs. But I think when I resigned from SGV, I was actually looking for a job with a multinational firm. My dream then was to be a CFO of a multinational company. But similar to Tony's experience, at that time, it was at the height of the Asian financial crisis naman. So it was really difficult to find a job because a lot of companies were actually freeze hiring. But fortunately, BSP offered me a job. So I took it. And I think it's by fate. And I guess after that, it really inculcated in me the interest in financial services industry, particularly in financial regulation, and the value of service to nation. So I think that that's really what helps me in terms of finding purpose and meaning in my career. So my natural curiosity as well in a specialized field helped me. So those are the influences. So the rest, I guess, also similar to Tony's history. So I stayed with the bank for more than 24 years.
So for Miss Jane, it's really more of the environment as well that motivated your interest in entering into the field. How about Miss Jade? Was it also because of the people around you that made you enter into finance?
Okay, so unlike Tony and Jane, strictly speaking, I'm not in the financial services sector, no. So I've been in professional services ever since and enjoying it till today. Actually, at a very young age, I wanted to be a doctor, but we cannot afford 8 years of medical school, so I ended up taking up accountancy. While, it may sound like a sad story, but looking back, I think it was a blessing. I couldn't imagine myself dealing with blood every day, and it's definitely more fun to talk about money and investing. Being in professional services is actually a constant learning experience, and that's really what I enjoy most, looking at business problems and thinking about how to solve those and create value in the organization. I think the variety of everyday projects and discussions that we have is mind stimulating. And while life can be very stressful on most days, I don't regret having a career in financial advisory. So I can't really say that I wanted to be in the industry at the start, but what kept me here is the everyday challenge and excitement of taking part in major transactions that hopefully are shaping businesses and society.
Thank you, Miss Jade. So I think for our panelists, each of them has their own story, from being wanting to enter into the business, but suddenly it's a different difficult situation, and then having this interest into problem solving, right? I guess in your own specific circumstances, what do you think are your key qualities that contributed to you succeeding into your roles? I guess let's begin with you, Miss Jade.
All right, sige. I think it's really a combination of a few things. What immediately comes to mind is the eye for detail, no? As mentioned, my background is really on accountancy. And though I'm not practicing accountant at the moment, that for me, that gave me the discipline to understand and break down financial transactions. But at the same time, I think the ability to zoom out and look at the big picture is quite important as well. To not really be lost in the details, but to make sense of the business and the market from different viewpoints. No? So I'd say that on the technical side, it's the ability to zoom in and zoom out at the same time. But on the softer side, I'd say tenacity and grit. I know that these two words are used very often, but they are really very relevant in the industry. You know, I think one has to have a tenacious heart to not fall apart when things get tough, and they often do, as these two ladies can probably confirm, no? And one has to have the grit to keep pushing on, to really get over the next hurdle and the next one and the next one after that. So I think that's what really kept me here.
I understand you, Miss Jade, with all the numbers and the different perspectives that one can take with all the situations where you're coming from for a financial career, right? You need to be able to dig into the detail, but also take a step back and absorb everything in.
To make sense of the numbers, yeah.
Yes. How about you, Miss Jane?
I think to be successful in life, one has to be anchored on strong personal values and principles. So I think I learned a lot from my parents. They taught me to be hardworking, independent, and God-fearing. And I think also the Jesuit education helps instill service, the value of service, being men and women for others. And in particular in Zamboanga, we say men and women for others, for God and country. So for Deo et Patria. And the value of patriotism was also reinforced when I joined the BSP as a civil servant. So as well as other core values of integrity, excellence, always pursuing excellence, no, accountability and solidarity. So my natural curiosity to learn and improve, I think that really helps me in my work to strive for excellence. And this has led me to further studies, which hone my technical skills, in this field. You really need a lot of reading to do in order to learn financial markets, risk management, and all the technical aspects of the industry. But I think beyond technical skills, we also have to develop our leadership qualities, right? So I had to develop this as well, particularly in listening to stakeholders, establishing good relationships with your colleagues, with your bosses, with subordinates as you go up the rank, and also very important, developing the strategic mindset. So Jade mentioned earlier, we tend to focus a lot on details. This is very particular to our field, but being in a leadership role, you also have to look at the bigger picture. And I think that also helped me because I usually would also like to take a look, step back, look at the bigger picture and what are the things I'm doing in terms of contributing to the overall core mandates of the BSP. So I think those qualities helped in my career.
So for Miss Jane, I think what's very important to you was your sense for your values and sense of purpose and holding true to your values, right? And it just motivated everything else. So for Miss Jade, we had attention to detail, also the tenacity. Miss Jane, the her sense of purpose, pushing for her further growth. How about Miss Tony?
Actually, it's very difficult now to come in last in this question. It's mainly because I would tend to agree with all of the values which Jade and Jane mentioned earlier on. But maybe if I were to add, I think I would normally tell this to even whenever I give talks to students, for example, like career talks, for example, that ever since I've never thought of myself as a genius, right? So when I was still studying, I was never like someone who would go to an exam day without the need to study and then they will ace the exam, right? So ever since, my parents instilled in us the value of discipline, the value of hard work. So I think even if, like for example, in all of the professions that we are at, I still believe in the value of hard work, in the value of discipline. I would always tell my peers that we would always push for what we call magis, right? So, which is defined as more or greater, right? So, for me, in my line of work, which is sales, majority of the products which we sell our clients, it's fairly commoditized. So the reason I think why clients would go to us, it's really more our end-to-end service for them. So for me, that is quite important, having that humility in knowing that these are things that we would need to do in order for us to win a deal, for example. And I also transitioned from being an individual contributor to being a leader, right? So it entails a lot of changes, mainly because as an individual contributor, what you are just focused on is just meeting numbers, right? But as you move or as you progress in your career, you would change your mindset into a level of maturity, wherein, as Jane and Jade mentioned, you would be looking at the bigger picture. What is better for the team? What is better for the bank? What would help my client? What would flourish our relationship? So I think, but for me, in terms of the traits which I value, it would really be hard work. It would really be magis. And at the end of the day, it's all about maturity and humility.
So it's how you approach your profession, right, Miss Tony? Without hard work, you wouldn't be successful in this career, in this field. So earlier we've talked about, or you've discussed your personal qualities that contributed to your success. How about, are there external factors or contributors outside of yourself that gave an impact to your progress, to your advancement? Miss Jane?
Oh, definitely. I think first, it's my family. Without family, I don't think I would be successful in my profession. At the early part of my career, my parents and siblings supported me and played a big part as they wholeheartedly supported me to pursue a career here in Manila, because all of them actually are based in Zamboanga City. So it was really good that they were very open to the idea of letting me go and come here in Manila and pursue my profession. Of course, my husband and my children are my source of inspiration and support. So I don't think there will be any meaning to any of the achievements without them. Another factor, I think, would be the mentors that I had at the BSP. I think that's very important. In particular, I have to mention the late governor, Nesting Espinilla, whom I have worked with directly for more than 10 years now. So these mentors actually, so there are more than one, of course, as we progress through our career. They have been instrumental in developing my technical skills, providing guidance, also influencing my leadership philosophy, my work ethics, and dedication to the BSP core mandates, as well as developing character within the organization. And I'm also fortunate that the BSP is a generous employer. So it provided me with a lot of opportunities in terms of exposures to various financial institutions. At the early part, I would always say that the field work at the early part of my career really contributed a lot to my professional development, because it exposed me to different types of business models within the financial services industries, different cultures, different management styles. So it developed a wider perspective as a regulator, as also as a bank examiner, and therefore made me more sensitive to different types, different perspectives. So when we come up with decisions or make recommendations. We actually listen to various stakeholders' perspectives. And of course, BSP supported in terms of professional development. I was a recipient of a scholarship, which helped me pursue higher education and training. And career opportunities also within the bank. There are a lot of areas where we rotated across the bank. So I didn't actually have to look for other jobs in other companies, because even within BSP, there were a lot of opportunities. So I think all of these factors, external factors, helped in the development of my career.
So for the second one, let's ask Miss Tony. Let's give her an opportunity to be the next one to answer. Miss Jade,
Yeah.
we'll put you last.
Actually, well, maybe it's going to be the same. My answer is actually very much in line with Jane's. External factors which helped me become who I am in my career would really be primarily my support system. So that would be my family, my close friends. And then, of course, as Jane mentioned, I have had mentors throughout my career. So in every institution, so I was very lucky, to have that specific mentor who molded me, taught me all of the technical things that I would need to learn in order for me to do well in my job. And then aside from that, they also imparted like leadership tips, mainly because it's inevitable that all of us would be, of course, moving up the corporate ladder. So as it is, I'm very fortunate. I'm very thankful for all of the people who have helped me become who I am now. So I'll pass on to Jade.
Oh, mahirap nga pala talaga pag last, ano?
Yes.
But yes, similar to Tony and Jane, definitely, there are a lot of people who contributed and supported me to come to where I am today, and being in finance and going quite far in the value chain is really a team effort, and there are many great women in the profession who paved the way for me. And in the same way, who became my inspiration. In PwC alone, we had 3 women senior partners. Cora de la Paz, would you believe, was the very first woman partner in the entire Pricewaterhouse network. And also the first woman senior partner. So really proud Filipina moment. But similar to Jane and Tony, I think family is the greatest influence, and my biggest fan, of course, is my mom. And I grew up in a household full of very strong women. My mom has 4 sisters, and so most of my early influences were really women. And of course, the men also played and continue to play an important role in my career. I have great male partners and senior partners in the firm who have been very supportive of my growth and continuing education. In fact, the program that I took from HBS was funded by PwC and my partners, and it's not cheap, And of course, while I can buy myself flowers, of course, having a spouse who understands the long hours I spend at work also helps ease the pressure. And of course, my 2 daughters who are just as supportive. And the reasons why I work so hard. So without those support systems in place, it will really be more challenging. So I know there are probably parang views that, women need to be independent. However, these support systems really help us to come to where we are today now. But this is, of course, not gender specific. I think this applies to men in the profession as well, although perhaps less recognized or less acknowledged, but just as important.
Thank you, Ms. Jade. So I think our panelists are very, the experience cuts across, right? That having that support system, having that supportive workplace drives that advancement or success in their profession. Since you have already mentioned that there have been mentors that have been very helpful to you along the way, do you have any specific ideal roles or people especially women, right? I think across the globe, there has been this message where it will be a bit easier for someone down their ranks to aim further up when you see someone that's like you. So do you have that someone that really inspired you to go further? The floor is open. Who wants to go first?
I think for me, it's more a combination of different people, right? I mean, whether a woman or male or female, I think what I try to do is somehow take inspiration and try and get best practices from whomever I can extract one and just try and then emulate the same behavior, no? So there's no one specific, but I think there are a lot of people who have really helped inspire me and motivate me.
Actually, well, for me, Glad, of course, my main role model, if I may, would be, of course, my mom. She's for me the epitome of strength. More recently, she was actually diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer, but we are happy that she is now in remission. So during that process, it was short, like 6 months. We did not see her falter in any way possible. So we drive strength from her. So that's in my personal role, in my personal capacity. But I think I was very lucky to be mentored by a couple of women throughout my career. One was my boss when I was still starting trading. So up until today, we are still quite close. Her name is Tish Laksamana Lopez. So up until now, so she taught me everything that I know now in derivatives, whether that's valuation, whether that's pricing. So now we actually work together in another organization, which is the Organization for Securities Brokers, which is NASB. So I'm quite happy that we've maintained that strong bond since since we worked together, and that was back in 2010. So up until now, we're still quite close. And then secondly, I think I look up to our CEO currently in Standard Chartered Bank. Her name is Lynette Ortiz. She is the first ever Filipino CEO here in SCB Manila. So I look up to her in the way she handles stress. Because of course, as we know, our jobs, no, they're not easy. I would normally look at someone, as a role model and how they're able to manage stress, how they're able to book deals despite challenging situations, despite very hairy internal discussions, right? So I think if I top of mind, those are my top three.
So
Yes,
for me, I think similar to Tony, my mom, who passed away last year. But I really look up to her because of her tenacity. She raised 8 children on her own as a housewife, and she really supported me even during the times that I had a lot of problems in the early part of my career. So she was very supportive. So, but in professional capacity, in the profession, I mentioned earlier BSP Governor Espinilla, who was a very strong influence also in my life. But we also had a lot of leaders, women leaders in the institution. So my former boss, Dali Yuvienko, was also very instrumental in terms of helping me build my leadership skills, particularly in listening to people and spotting talent. Miss Lenny Silvestre was also one of the women leaders at the PSP. And currently we have DG Chuchi Fonashir, who we also look up to in terms of providing leadership, in the institution. And also DG Sid Amador, Juania Amador, she was also one of the deputy governors at the BSP, someone we look up to also in terms of her experience, a wide breadth of experience in providing guidance to us. So those are the people that I think help me, and also I look up to and try to emulate in terms of their personal values. Particularly, DGC, she was really humble in spite of her success, and she was also a very caring boss. So those are the people who influenced me.
So on one hand, we have these people, male or female, as Miss Jade mentioned, that are able to recognize your talents, even if whatever the circumstances were then. And you also have this powerful example at home with our mothers. We recognize that. But I guess there's this flip side, right? There may have been times where you ever challenged because of your gender, may it be from the perspective of a finance professional or as a customer or investor. Have there been any instance?
Actually, well, I can start there, Glad. I'm quite fortunate that never in my professional career have I been challenged because I am a woman. I think that is where you see the difference is in the Philippines versus other developed markets. Because I've been part of the CFA board for a few years now, and this has always been one of the issues presented in like your global in our global meetings with other CFA organizations, that it has always been an issue like for other developed countries that they only have a few women in finance. But I think here in the Philippines, like for example now, before when I used to be part of the board, I think with Jane, we were all women, right? Except for one, I think a couple of men in the board of the CFA Philippines. But now, of course, we have a good mix. But as it is, it has never come up as an issue nor a challenge for me.
Thank you, Ms. Tony.
Maybe I can add on to that. No, I
Yes,
agree with Tony. No, we're quite lucky that the gender divide is not pronounced or probably not obvious in the Philippines, right? But gender equality actually progressed quite slowly in other countries. No, I remember when I used to attend regional meetings where I was the only female deals leader in the region. And they always say, you know, you have to take a seat at the table, right? But while I was seated at the table, it felt like it took twice the effort to be heard. And I was very calculated in what I want to say and how I said it. And I don't think that men had to worry about that, or if they are, then they are very good in keeping it to themselves. But for me as a woman, I feel like I have to prepare more to prove my presence in those meetings. No? But I think we have come a long way since then. We now have 3 women deals leaders in the region, still not as many as we would like it. But globally, PwC actually has achieved great strides, no? Close to parity, in fact, when it comes to women representation at the global board level. So in 2022, about 45% of our global board members are women, from just about 1/3 in maybe 4 years ago. No? And in the Philippines, we even have stronger statistics. Currently, we have 44 partners in the firm, and 22 are women. and 5 out of 10 are members of the management board, are also women. So perfect parity. So we have seen that, of course, that organizations with women representation show better performance. But really, just to clarify, I'm not asking for equal representation. I'm more for equal opportunity, right? The best man or woman for the job. But I do believe that, you know, if you give women equal opportunity to excel, that we can definitely do it.
Thank you, Ms. Jade. How about Ms. Jane?
Since we are celebrating Women's Month, I'd like to share my journey, you know, as a finance professional in the context of being a woman. Of course, usually when we discuss the role of women, we inevitably need to discuss gender gap. I think, as mentioned earlier also by Tony and Jade, we are relatively fortunate in the Philippines. No, in that we rank in the latest World Economic Forum's gender gap index. We are 19th out of 146 countries. No, which indicates that women in general in the Philippines enjoy equal rights, and I think that's also my personal experience. Nevertheless, I think the gap still exists, and actually ranked 2 spots lower in 2022 compared to the last year's ranking. So also when we usually talk about gender gap, the one thing that comes to mind usually is discrimination. So I personally also haven't really experienced any overt discrimination, but I think discrimination is just a small fraction or factor when it comes to gender gap. I think in reality, gender gap substantially springs from social norms about women, family, and motherhood. So over the years, I think the factors that lead to the gender gap has slowly, very slowly shrunk. So things like participation in the workforce, it used to be very low globally, as well in the Philippines, education, opportunities for education, etc. Except I think for one factor that to this day highlights society's expectation on women. And that is the idea that women should raise children and are the primary caregivers for children. There's nothing essentially wrong with that, but it actually highlights the idea that gender gap largely boils down to the choice and opportunities or the lack thereof because of these social norms. So what does this mean to me personally in my personal journey? So to be honest, in terms of career opportunities, motherhood can actually pose a lot of challenges, particularly during pregnancy and when you have to, and childbirth, especially when the children are still babies, where you have to take time off and take care of the baby, you know. But even as the children grow, the expectation is that mothers are predominantly the primary caretakers, right? So help with the school, taking care of the children when they are sick. So in a way, the choice to be a mother can limit or delay our career opportunities and significantly contribute to the gender gap. So these were, I think, personally, some of the challenges that I faced as a woman. When I was I was a single mother to my eldest child, and later on, when I settled and had 2 more kids. So it was actually really challenging juggling the time between family and career. So obviously, I need all the help that I can get, no? So I think in terms of overcoming the challenges, there are a lot of things that you can do and what things that a company can also do to help employees within the firm. So I think an enabling environment is very important. It helps actually that in the Philippines, we have laws that support women empowerment. So we have the Magna Carta for women, maternity and even paternity law, no, which is supposedly really there to help in trying to balance the responsibilities of both parents. Solo Parent Act, requirements of the Philippine Commission for Women, Anti-Violence Against Women and Children Act, expanded Breastfeeding Promotion Act, and a lot of other laws. No? And at the BSP, it really helped that we have implementing policies that support all of these laws and also extending or going beyond just the compliance of the requirements of the law. So women-related health benefits really help, as well as programs like, for example, allowing mothers, breastfeeding mothers, to take extra time off to express and store breast milk for their babies, and other similar programs, no, that are women-related. So I think those activities and programs help in terms of being able to overcome the challenges of being a woman in this industry. So those are just some of my personal experiences as a woman, which I hope the participants would also find helpful, no? When later on, I think a lot of the participants are students here. So later on, perhaps when you make life decisions or choices, these are some considerations, and you might want to also promote awareness within your organizations and support enabling policies that would help women in general.
So our panelists have given their personal anecdotes on what challenges they have faced, but actually they have been hinting since earlier on that there are facts or there are statistics where show or present women's experiences. So actually, I'm going to share my screen and I just want to get the opinion of our panelists, right? I'm presenting different facts and myths related to women finance. So the first one is while there is women participation in the workforce, the statistics is saying that we have still further to improve. What do you think, dear panelists, are perhaps the major barriers or challenges why it's taking quite a while to see more participation in leadership roles for women? Would you want to give your insight, Miss Jade?
I think everything that Jane mentioned earlier really contribute to limiting the participation of women in finance. No? That sort of expectation that you carry within you as you know, as a spouse, as a mother, and the many roles that women play. I think while men also play the same roles, but the expectations to stick with those roles are much greater when it comes to women. And of course, the expectation that your priority will be taking care of the household. So I think those things really contribute to the statistic that you're showing here today, Gladys.
Thank you, Miss Jade. Actually,
Maybe just, yeah,
yes, Miss Tony.
maybe if I can just add to what Jane and Jade mentioned. I totally agree with what Jade and Jane mentioned, no? That there is potentially that greater expectation, like for example, for the woman to manage the household. So given that we see these statistics, potentially it may not be because women are not permitted or not offered the job. It may be the woman's choice, like to spend more time with their kids, more time with their family, more time managing the household, rather than exploring these career opportunities. So for me, it's really a matter of choice at the end of the day. So I'm quite optimistic in the way I think. You know, so for me, like while I feel that there may be some gaps still, I believe that opportunities are present, but it's really up to us to choose what would be the best, no, the best route for us given our priorities.
So our panelists have given their opinion that it could be also a personal choice, that that story may not be appearing in the numbers that we see in the figures that are being published, right? But we also have this one. We have a common myth that traits generally linked to females, such as empathy, compassion, patience, these are less useful as a financial or investment professional. Are they really? Are these traits useless for someone who's working in the field?
I did. Can I start?
Yes, Ms. Jane.
So definitely we don't agree with this statement. I think empathy is very important, especially as you go up the ladder, right? When you are in leadership roles, you really need to be able to manage more resources, including relationships with your colleagues, your subordinates, with your bosses. And I think these traits actually are important in helping you be successful in managing the various areas that you handle, no, as a leader. So definitely, I don't think that these are less useful in the financial investment profession. There may be a misconception because the idea of finance, it's so may seem you need to be cold and just do number crunching and be detailed oriented, etc. But I think in any management role, in particular, whether it's in finance or investment profession, the traits of empathy, compassion, and patience definitely is very important, especially when you have to deal with a lot of stress and problems in work.
I agree with Jane, no? I think these traits, on the contrary, make women better finance professionals and anyone better leaders, no? But if I look at it from an investment point of view, I think empathy allows us to be more targeted in providing, tailor-fitted financial solutions, right? And then the other one, compassion, I think it brings forth our authenticity. And therefore, in the profession, I think we are more trusted, which is a very important currency. And then patience allows us to have a more disciplined approach, which means that we take time to understand the investment options before making a decision. And some people might think that, we are being risk averse. So that's the other side of it. But really, that is just financial discipline, I think.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, maybe just quickly, I would like to echo both Jane and Jade's answers. Just last week, we had like an offsite with our country management team in Standard Chartered Bank. And there was this one question, right? What do people leaders, so that's what we call supervisors in Standard Chartered Bank, what do they need to have in order to help their reporting lines? And this term, empathy, it actually came up in our discussion. It's mainly because I think in our markets now, we have seen very volatile markets. We've experienced the pandemic, right? So I think this is where the traits of empathy and compassion comes into play. So if, for example, during the pandemic, if someone was feeling under the weather in your team, can someone cover for that team? I think those simple things, it's quite important for our reporting lines and our teammates. No? So it's quite, so it's not just limited to the financial and the investment profession, I think. So all of these traits, regardless of whether you are in FMCG, whether you are in a corporation, for example, all of these traits would, of course, help in the overall harmony, in any team within an organization.
Thank you, Ms. Tony. So for the next one, actually moving on to women as investors, right? This is from the World Bank, and they're saying that the majority of unbanked adults, which is about 1.4 billion or so, majority of that are women. And that women are finding it harder to raise emergency cash if ever they do need them. So in terms of financial resilience, women are trailing off. But earlier, you've also mentioned your observation that particularly in the Philippines, it seems that we're in a better position. I guess in your personal experience or in your opinion, what did the Philippines do right? Or what is it about our circumstances that made us in a better position compared perhaps to the average or to our peers?
Ako for me, glad top of mind. I think because it has always been like whenever you watch movies or TV series like which are Filipino family related, right? It's always the woman handling money, right? So I think that's unique to the Philippines. So I think that's why we are quite unique versus the overall global statistics. So given that women are in charge of money in the household, we would use the funds, whether we would place it in, we would buy funds, we would buy outright stocks or bonds, or we would just place them in time deposit. So I think that's where we differ versus other countries.
Yes, Miss Tony. Actually, I'm not sure if it would be common in other countries, right? But in the Philippines, I think the older ones would know the Avon ladies. Now we have the online sellers, right? And we even have the sari-sari stores, sari-sari store owners. A lot of these entrepreneurs are actually women. And that supplements what you've mentioned, Miss Tony, that women in the country are at least accustomed to handling finances or doing something to contribute to finances within a family.
I agree with Tony. No, I think while men have their names in the bank accounts, the budgeting and the spending is still done by women. So the bank account is just a temporary place, and men withdraws and hand over the money to women. But maybe another reason for that is we may have a bigger proportion of women who are in the workforce compared to other countries as well.
I agree, no, totally, that women in the Philippines overall have greater financial inclusion compared to other countries. This is backed by statistics, as you can see in the slides. No? I think there are various factors, societal, cultural, and behavioral factors, and some of which were already mentioned. No? Culturally, in a traditional Filipino household, it is usually the wife who is in charge of managing the household finance. And I also personally of some friends, male friends who turn over their ATMs to their wives, and the wives would also know the bonuses, etc. So it's a full disclosure. So basically management of finances at the household level. And also I think we employ, again, equal rights, as that of men, statistically, in 19th place out of 146 countries, in terms of the gender gap index. And in terms of microfinance and micro enterprises, many women are entrepreneurs, as also mentioned. In fact, BSP data would show that around 95% of the microfinance loans are given to microfinances. Sorry, 85%, and around 95% of the micro enterprises are owned by women. So it's quite interesting that that there is a high participation in terms of businesses for women. And some microfinance providers actually also specifically target women as their clients, because based on their experience, it has been shown that women are more prompt in their payments and therefore better credit clients. So I think those are some factors that actually lead to higher participation of women in financial services and products. But nevertheless, I think there's still a gap. There are a lot of gaps. The gap is still significant, and there are a lot of things that we need to do in terms of making sure that there is access to financial products and services, particularly to women.
Thank you to our panelists. At this point, we'll be beginning our Q&A in a while. I encourage our audience to already think about what they would want to ask our panelists. And while you're doing that, I'm gonna stop this share screen and move on to getting the advice and opinion of our panelists to those, first of all, to those pursuing a career in finance. What would you say why a financial career is worth it? How would you present it to our audience and to different people trying to get into finance?
For me, like if you want excitement If you want a dynamic and non-monotonous type of job, then you may want to consider financial markets. As it is, if for example, I sleep tonight, tomorrow would be a new day. You don't know where dollar peso will be. You don't know where
Yes.
peso rates will be. You don't know where dollar rates will be. So that was what I was looking for initially when I started my career. Um, I wanted some sort of excitement in a way because I was young, right? So that's why I initially started my career in trading, right? So, and in financial markets, similar to what Jane mentioned, wherein you have various units within the Banco Central. For any bank as well, you have various units which you may want to explore once you are in. So, and aside from that, the financial markets is always evolving. So if you are the type who would want to learn as you grow in your professional career, this may be an opportunity for you.
It's just very quickly from my end, no. I think monetary benefits are not bad.
I agree, Ms. J.
As Tony mentioned, no, more than that, it's really the excitement of working in the industry. I think the continuous learning and the constant adrenaline boost. No? So if you're an adrenaline junkie, then this is a place for you. And if you're one looking for fulfillment or greater purpose, know that finance is the engine of growth as well. So money makes the world go round. So what better way for you to help society than work in a financial services sector?
Thanks. Thank you, Ms. J.
Yes,
Ms. Jane,
totally agree. I think finance is exciting. It's technically challenging. And I think more importantly, it's so diverse. No, you can choose your career, from many areas: banking, corporate finance, asset management, even in regulations, with PSP. So if you want to have a sense of purpose in terms of public service, you can join the regulators, compliance, risk management, etc., etc. So there are a lot of areas that you can choose from. So it's very diverse and challenging. So again, if you are looking for something that's exciting, then I think career in finance would help you fulfill those dreams.
Ms. Jane, for you, I have a particular question. What do you think can we do to further support gender diversity and financial inclusion, especially within our society?
I think awareness is the first step. No, I'm very heartened that a lot of the participants here today joined this webinar. So whatever you learn in terms of the gender gap, the lack of participation of women in terms of financial inclusion, encourage others to read more about the topic. It is a reality, gender gap. You may not personally experience it directly, but studies have shown that there is empirical evidence that support that indeed gender gap exists. And the pandemic has actually had a regressive impact on closing the gender gap. So if you look at the Global Gender Gap Report, it will take 132 years before we reach full parity. So this was, I think, up from the estimate of around 108 years before the pandemic. So I think we can be agents of change, learn more about women empowerment and the gender gap, and since you are future leaders who can shape policy, I think it is important that we keep an open mind and be an advocate of inclusion and diversity. So I think in our own ways, we can help, even if we cannot really contribute significantly in terms of closing the gender gap, but just awareness and advocating for women empowerment. I think that's very critical and important.
Thank you, Ms.
So there are also, I think, in terms of financial inclusions, I have to plug this. No, there are a lot of programs as well from the BSP. We are a strong advocate for financial inclusion, and the National Strategy for Financial Inclusion actually has a lot of programs, and in also targeting reducing the gender gap in financial inclusion as well. So programs like financial education, literacy programs, digital finance. I think digital payments and financial products and services are really important in expanding the availability of financial products to both men and women, etc. So there are a lot of programs that we have, and I think learning about all of those can also help in increasing awareness and making access more available to our to men and women. Yeah. But basically, I think what is very interesting is which we can help is on the financial education side and awareness. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. For Miss Jade, my question would be, what do you think should the female professional do to those that are trying to go up as they try to go up the corporate ladder?
Yeah. So maybe if I can just add to a little bit to what Jane mentioned earlier, I do agree that financial literacy is the first step, and I think we need to start early, both at school and at home. We can teach investing and the risk and returns of various financial products to kids as early as secondary school, hopefully. And savings, of course, as early as possible. And I'm glad to see that the BSP has a lot of financial literacy programs. But for women who are looking to, have a career in finance and go up that, corporate ladder, maybe what I can say is really invest in yourself. I think build your network, pursue further studies, and take care of yourself. Physical health and mental well-being are very important, as these will give you the strength to take on the many challenges that the profession entails. I often tell the younger generation who would seem impatient to get rich or get ahead sooner, to really look after themselves, because this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. And those who get to the finish line are those who keep going. So I think that would probably be what I'd say.
Thank you, Miss Jade. For Miss Tony, Miss Jade mentioned it earlier also, but do you have insights to share to women who are afraid to handle money, let alone consider investments?
Okay, so well, my 2 cents there is they're not, you won't lose anything, right? So it's a matter of you just holding on to cash and just placing your cash under your pillow, or you letting compounding work for you, right? So at the end of the day, the simplest type of product would just be a time deposit, right? So you can always take baby steps. So no one is forcing you to go to the complex and aggressive type of product right away. We would have low risk products, ideally, which you can start considering when and then when you get the hang of it, when you get more comfortable, that's when you learn other products, which may lead to greater returns, but may expose you to greater risks, right? So at the end of the day, it's all a matter of you getting exposed to all of these types of products. And this is where, again, if I were to tie it to what Jane and Jade mentioned, this is where the financial literacy seminars would get into play, right? So we would need to educate the wider public on the investment outlets out there. So it's not always, like, for example, it's not always crypto right away. It's not always stocks right away, right? So there are other less risky investments which you may consider at the onset. So my suggestion is just take baby steps. At least you would earn overnight interest, right? Rather than earning zero when you just keep your money in your wallets or in your box or in your bauls, within your homes.
Considering our time, I guess we'll just have 2 more questions. The first one may be simple, but I think it'd be quite difficult to answer. As a woman, as a financial career practitioner, as a investor, when do you feel the most empowered? Like, this is a Miss
Yeah,
Universe
parang medyo
level
mahirap siyang,
level
yeah,
of
it's a
question.
Miss Universe type of question. Hmm.
I think you have you. Can you repeat the question again?
Um,
Parang Miss Universe.
when do you feel the most
Most
empowered?
empowered. I
Yes, ma'am.
think as an investor, no, or yeah, I think we feel most empowered if we are financially independent. So I think handling your finances, being able to save, invest, set aside for the future, for your retirement, having funds for emergency. I think those are important, no, to feel empowered. And of course, ability to the choice, no, to where to place your funds and get advice from your financial advisor on what is best suited for your profile.
Miss Jane, Miss Tony. Miss Jane already put her headset.
I think like professionally, because I totally agree with Jane. I think when it comes to investments, I would also feel empowered when I don't need like to check on my bank account. If, for example, I know that I have an upcoming bill payment, right? So whenever I am that financial independent, I would feel empowered. But professionally, I would normally feel empowered whenever if for example I'm fighting for something and then I would have that courage to actually see it through because at the end of the day, like in finance, we would normally have to fight for deals. We would need to fight for client requirements, and we would need to push for products internally. So for me, I get that power and I get that motivation from my clients because for me, I'm not just a salesperson. I flourish my well, I cherish my relationship. I try to build on these relationships. So for me, I think of myself as a partner to my clients. So if they have a requirement, I normally would push for that and try to see it through internally. So I feel very empowered whenever I get that trust from my client. And with that trust, I use that as a springboard. I use that as something would push me to actually try to work with them in order for them to eventually deal the trade with us.
Nothing to add on the financial independence side. Agree with both Tony and Jane. In terms of the empowerment at the professional level, I think one of the things that I often say that as a partner in the firm, I think one of the things that I cherish most is the autonomy, autonomy to make certain decisions. And that's when I feel empowered. But it's since it's a partnership, you don't always get your way, of course. But I think just the opportunity to be heard and to plead your case, I think is for me empowerment already, a source of empowerment.
Thank you, Miss Jade. I think this is our final question. Um, I think it's also related to the earlier or when do you feel empowered, right? It's my question is how do you manage or overcome self-doubt? Because with empowerment, you have to be able to also manage that doubt you have or even building your confidence to go through the journey of your career, even your daily life. So your final statements, I guess, on how do you overcome self-doubt?
I can just compare this to training in a marathon. I trained for the marathon. I'll be running the marathon in October. I think Uh, a lot of doubts come when you feel that you're not able to achieve your objectives. And I think practice and being prepared is very important. And I think that will help in terms of self-doubts whenever the doubts would come in. You would know that you have worked for it, you have practiced, you have prepared for it, and therefore you would be able to overcome that self-doubt. So I think even in the physical aspect of marathon training, we also have these mental challenges where we have to overcome them. And I would always go back. I prepared for this. I've practiced. I've did a lot of preparation for it. So I should be able to finish it. So I think the same philosophy applies to work. Always be prepared. Take time to read. And just and overcome your self-doubt if ever the doubts come in. You know you're prepared for it.
For me, I'm no to be honest, Glad, no, I'm no stranger to self-doubt. So and normally, like in financial markets, self-doubt would normally trickle in. It would normally be here as we start the year, because usually we start at zero, right? And we have our own targets for the entire year, right? So, but for me, there's always, during the pandemic, there has been a lot of discussion on self-love. So for me, my thoughts here would be, we can overcome self-doubt with self-love. So at the end of the day, you know your traits, you know your strengths, so you capitalize on those. And then at the end of the day, I've been harping on hard work. I've been harping on magis, right? So if I were just to borrow what our CEO shared with us in our offsite, the markets have been difficult, right? So whether you are talking about your own personal investments or your investments as an institution, right? But at the end of the day, in everything that we do, let's just try, right? Let's just try to make the most of our investments. Let's just try to build and grow our wealth. Let's just try to meet our targets. So, so I'll probably end there and pass on to Jane.
All right. So I suppose even as you get to a certain position, or even as you get older, self-doubt never really disappears, right? I mean, you know, it comes up every now and then. But experience would somehow teach you how to deal with it. And what I often do is I go back to the challenges which I overcame in the past and sort of gain strength, you know, from those. If I was able to do it before, then I will be able to do this. So that sort of pushes me to take courage, you know. And I think, as they say, courage is not really the absence of fear, but, you know, plunging even with that fear within you. And I also take comfort in knowing that, you know, if I don't know if this mindset is correct, no, but if I fail, these too shall pass. You know, after a week, after 2 weeks, you know, nobody will remember what happened, unless, of course, it's a financial meltdown. You caused a financial meltdown, right? So somehow that sort of gives me comfort that this is something that I can do.
Thank you. There you have it, our dear audience. We were able to hear so much, learn a lot, and get the insights of our dear panelists. Ms. Rich, I turn the floor over to you.
Wow, sick, lig, umaapaw, no? That
May Miss Universe
discussion.
question pa yon kanina.
Yes, very true. And imagine from the time that you have started, I listened carefully to all of what our panelists have said and learned a lot from them. So thank you very much, Gladys, to Miss Mary Jane, of course, to our very own Miss Maritoni Bautista, to Miss Mary Jade Rojas Divina Gracia for gracing our event, for being here today. And at this point, we would like to award the e-certificates to our panelists. All right, so CFA Society Philippines presents the Certificate of Recognition to Ms. Maritoni Bautista, CFA, for her invaluable contribution to this session on Women in Finance Roundtable. Thank you very much, Ms. Maritoni Bautista. Next, to Ms. Mary Jane Chong, also for her invaluable contribution as panelist of the Women in Finance Roundtable, given this 8th of March 2023, signed by our President and Chairman, Rob Ramos. And to Ms. Mary Jade Rojas Divina Gracia, CFA, CVA, also for her invaluable contribution as panelist for this Women in Finance Roundtable given on March 8, 2023. Thank you very much, ladies. So exciting to actually have our session on women in finance, no? We of course have celebrated International Women's Month and Women's Day previously, pero this one is really like close to my heart, seeing my previous bosses and Miss Mary Jade nung bago ako sa CFA. You were part of the prestige night that we held, no, for the Charter Awards. So thank you very much, everyone. To our participants, please turn your attention to the screen for the QR code. We'd like to hear from you, no? Please take time. This is only 1 to 2 minutes to complete. And last but not the least, let's turn on our videos for the photo opportunity with our panelists and moderator for today. Ayan, lahat tayo, mag-turn on tayo ng ating camera para may group photo tayo with Gladys, with Miss Mary Jade, and Miss Maritoni Bautista. And if my team members or colleagues, if you can help me. Oy, meron tayong from BTR. Hello, guys. That's a lot of you. Thank you very much for joining us today. Okay. Hi, Basil. All right. How about the others? Nahihiya. Nahihiya sila. Sige na. Tayo lang naman, no? All right. Sige. So, I asked my colleague Precious to help me take photo. 1, 2, 3, smile.
Kasama ako.
Yan. Thank you, Miss Telma.
The mom of Maritoni.
That's my mom.
Oh, hi, Miss Telma. Hello po.
The right side is the spending daddy.
Very supportive. Guys, thank you very much. Happy International Women's Day to everyone. To our panelists, we are grateful for your time. To our participants, thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Rob. Oh, there's Miss Juliet. Thank you, Miss Juliet. We also have mga students, ha? Hi, Miss Juliet. Lovely to see. Merong taga TSU. Which schools pa ba yung iba? Is this Adamson? ADU? Tama ba? Thank you, guys.